Well, for us, every single transaction is tied to hard dollars. And if we're off by 10 cents, trust me, we're going to hear about it within an hour from somebody, right?
Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Beaumont Vance. Beaumont is the Senior Vice President of Data and Artificial Intelligence at Paychex, a business solutions, payroll, HR, and benefits company that earns more than $5.5 billion in annual revenue. In his role, Beaumont is responsible for developing and executing the data strategy at the company, including the use of business intelligence, advanced analytics, and AI-driven automation to drive both business performance and enhanced customer value through the use of data and AI in the company's technology and advisory solutions. He joined Paychex from West Cap Management, a growth private equity firm where he served as managing director of AI and investments. And now for a word from our partner, Airia. There's a reason most enterprise AI initiatives never make it to production. You can't find a platform that's both powerful and secure enough. The result? AI budgets burn with zero business impact, but not anymore. Airia is the enterprise AI platform that delivers speed without compromise. Unlike other platforms that force you to choose between fast deployment or secure operations, Airia brings speed and security together. Launch AI quickly without cutting corners on compliance, scale rapidly without sacrificing governance, move at the speed of business without moving past your security requirements. Fortune 500 companies across finance, healthcare, retail, legal, and more choose Airia because they deliver what seemed impossible. Enterprise AI that's fast enough to beat the competition and secure enough to protect your most sensitive data. Ready for AI at full speed with zero compromise? Visit Airia.com to see the platform in action. That's AIRIA.com. Simplify enterprise AI. And now on to the interview. Beaumont, welcome to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Great. Thanks for having me, Peter.
That's a great pleasure. Well, I mentioned in brief an overview of Paychex's business. I wonder if you could take it from there and just provide a little bit more context as to the business that you're in.
Sure. The way I think of it, I grew up in a small business. My father had a small retail store, and my wife also had a small business. And when you get into a business, you get into it to make money in an area that you are passionate or care about. And then when you start it, you find out that there are many, many, many things you have to do that you really don't want to do that have nothing to do with your business. And probably about 90% of your time is spent on things like dealing with employee issues and filing forms with the states and looking up regulations and managing payroll and many other things. And what Paychex is, we are a company dedicated to helping small business succeed. And what we do is we provide a suite of services and products as a platform that allows small businesses to not have to worry about those things and focus on their business. So, of course, as the name implies, we do payroll, but we do far more than that. We also provide insurance. We have one of the largest insurance agencies in the country, both for health and benefits, as well as for property and casualty. For employees, we even have programs to help with pet insurance. We have PEO services. We have advisory services. We have HR advisors. We have a whole suite around all of your HR and payroll and insurance needs, basically, that allows small business people to get that taken care of and focus on what they want to do best.
In our first conversation, you offered some remarkable data around the quantity of the makeup of GDP and number of employees that are parts of small businesses in a country like the U.S. Can you provide some of that data?
Sure, and don't quote me on any of these because there'll be rough figures. But yeah, there's roughly 6.3 million companies in the United States, of which 99.9% have under 500 employees, which is how a small, medium-sized business is defined in the U.S. They employ 99.9% of all working adults in the United States. So this small business category, if you will, is actually the large business category, and it comprises about a little under 50% of the total U.S. GDP. I mean, this is the U.S. economy. Like, this is the engine of the U.S. economy. And these people, the people who work for small and medium-sized businesses, are the U.S. communities. That is the U.S.
Yeah, it's a fascinating way to frame it, I think. I'm so glad you offered some of that context. Speaking of context, you have an interesting role, Senior Vice President of Data and Artificial Intelligence. Part of that seems rather self-explanatory, but I'd love to have you dive into the details of your responsibilities, if you would.
Sure. So I have four major areas that I'm responsible for. First is data monetization, which we can talk about in a bit. I also have a data science and AI team, which does both the AI and also algorithmic type work, the hardcore data science. a data engineering department, which is building the database to feed all of the AI and all of the algorithms and all of the reporting that we do. And then we have a reporting and analytics group, which helps our business leaders and actually everyone at Paychex make database decisions.
Can you talk a little bit about the teams? It sounds like those are four different areas and 4
Mhm.
teams. I don't know if they're all distinct teams, if there's any overlap between those. Talk a bit about how those teams are structured, if you would.
The lines get very blurry whenever you're doing something like this, like since everything relies on data as the foundation, right? I mean, you can't do anything with AI if without having the data, and the data can't just be there. It has to be organized. It has to be machine readable. It has to be, meta tagged. A lot of those things. So data pervades everything that we do. Reporting and analytics is hard to distinguish from the data science group at many times. The one unique group is probably data monetization, which has a largely different function. But again, all the teams, we here at Paychex really don't believe in silos. And so while these are functional organizations, in reality, what you would see is under me is one team who some people are focusing a little bit more on something different than the other team members, but they have a tremendous amount of overlap.
Fascinating. And speaking of data, one of the data points you've shared with me is that you you have clients that make up one of every 11 workers in the United States, which is pretty remarkable to think about. You have, as a result of that, great statistical significance to the data that you have. Talk a bit about that data monetization that you just referred to. I mean, given the vast quantity of data, the important data, very interesting data that you have at your fingertips, while also necessitating that that's cared for appropriately, as it's very important data to the people whose data it is. Talk a bit about how you think about that data monetization, if you would.
For the data monetization, yeah. So people might be familiar. We have something called the Small Business Index, where we give reports on what's happening with small businesses. And again, going back to 99.9% of employees are working for small business. This is the working population of the United States. And going back to my entire career has been spent in some type of quantitative focus. And going back, the past 20, 25 years or so, what has always bugged me about the data that I had available to tell what was going on with the American workforce, with labor markets, was that so much of it was either sampled or surveys. And so you had these small sets. And if you're trying to figure out what's happening at the macro economy, very difficult if you don't have really solid data to be able to do that. And so our data is very different in the sense that all of the data we have for payroll for the employees of our clients is tied to dollars. It's very much like stock market data. And so imagine, if you will, if you didn't have stock tickers, you didn't know what the actual stock prices were, and it wasn't tied to dollars. And instead, what you had was, hey, we sampled 1,500 people, and this is what they were buying today. How would trading change, right? It would be a very different world. But we don't. We have actual dollars tied to every transaction, so we know it's solid. Well, for us, every single transaction is tied to hard dollars. And if we're off by 10 cents, trust me, we're going to hear about it within an hour from somebody, right? So what we have is very rock solid data that gives you insight into the economy. And we've been making that data available to everyone through the Small Business Index, but we've also been helping the U.S. government for a while. In fact, we played a significant role in helping with the recovery from the Maui fires a little while back, where our data was able to see what was actually happening, and there was no other data whatsoever to give you insight into the local economy. But at a broader range, this data is also valuable for people who are doing investments or concerned about trends in employment in the overall U.S. economy. And I mean, that's really the bedrock foundational data for the economy, right? So this data is got high value. And we don't just have 1 in 11 workers. We've been doing this for a long time. So our data is much broader than just the data on payroll. We also have the knowledge of all of the people who've been helping small businesses. We get something like 39 million contacts from our clients every single year. So we're talking to a tremendous number of small businesses, and they are telling us what works, what doesn't work, what they need, what they don't need, what their pain points are. And we have AI that goes through and organizes all that data. So we have pinpoint precision on the voice of our customer and what their needs are at any given time. And that data, I mean, to me, in business, when you have a goal like we do of helping our clients succeed, you can't really start doing that until you actually know what they're thinking, what they need, what their concerns are, what their problems are to solve. And we have very precise data on that. We have a lot of data on that, and we leverage it every single day.
Can you talk a bit about some of the foundational elements of ensuring you've got great data? I want to soon broach the topic, which is among your responsibilities, of course, of artificial intelligence, and in the minds on the lips of most not only technology executives but broader businesses across the landscape today. Before we get there, though, one can only take advantage of advances in artificial intelligence with having great data hygiene. And I wonder if you could talk a bit about your thought process around data strategy, ensuring that that foundational layer is in place such that you can then build upon that in very meaningful ways.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Having data and having usable data are two different things. I often use the example, like if you had a library with no Dewey Decimal System and the books were just all stacked around, how long it would take you to get an answer to something, right? And that's what, data that's not organized in the appropriate way is for not just AI, for reporting, for anything else, which is one of the reasons when Paychex decided to create this function, this department, we created a data group straight away in order to focus on that. And what we've been doing is leveraging AI because a lot of the data that has the information we need is, as I alluded to, like in conversations with our customers. I mean, in the past, a customer calling you, if every customer called you before and said, I need X, right? The only way you could find out what customers wanted is if you went and listened to all the recordings. And when you get 39 million of those per year, it's something like, I don't know, 300 years of conversations a year to go through. It's impossible. So AI has changed that. So one of the first things we did also was put in conversational AI. And so we started restructuring our database, and we started going to all of the places where data was stored and structuring it and centralizing it so that it's available not just for reporting, but also for AI and any other business purpose that we might have. And part of that too was going through our knowledge bases. So we had captured a lot of knowledge, a lot of answers to a lot of questions, a lot of our expertise, which was stored in Word documents or SharePoints, or it was in repositories, but it wasn't structured in any type of way that you could actually find what you were looking for. To search it, you couldn't just say, hey, what should you do if you have an employee who goes on maternity leave in Oakland, California, right? We used AI basically to largely structure a lot of that data in very, very close partnership with our compliance, security, and legal organizations so that we had rock solid data that was highly protected, that had the answers we wanted, and was organized in such a way that it was readable by AI or anything else we wanted to. And I don't want to even throw the numbers out to you, but it was, let me just say that the change in the usable data was over 1,000% change.
Incredible, fascinating anecdote there, and appreciate you also the broader philosophy that you bring to this. I wanted to, speaking of what you bring, your experience. I mentioned at the outset that your immediate prior experience was in growth private equity, and where you focused on AI from an investment perspective. And I wonder, how is that experience colored the way in which you think about this very different role? Obviously, that must have given you a great understanding of the AI landscape, important players that are emerging, different parts of artificial intelligence, emergence of areas like generative, of course, agentic, and the like. Talk a bit about how that experience has helped you in this, as I say, very different experience and different role.
It's funny. I didn't think of them as being that much different because my main role was to with twofold. One was to help the fund, right, grow and succeed. But for a fund to succeed, you have to have all your portfolio companies succeed. And what are in a portfolio of a growth private equity fund? Well, they're small businesses. These are all like companies with under 500 employees who are trying to grow. And the interesting thing was that when we survey our clients at Paychex, they have the same number one and two pain points as all of our portfolio companies, which was finding qualified candidates and dealing with regulatory issues. And one of the first things I did when I got to Paychex, I think I was only here for 3 or 4 months when we launched our recruiting copilot, which was a new disruptive way to find qualified candidates quickly without the wait time that you do from posting. It's more of an active way to find candidates, leveraging a full AI stack. And then we built a knowledge base that helped answer all the questions around compliance and regulatory issues as well too. So that wasn't that different. It really comes down to the same things. How do you leverage technology to help businesses be successful and grow? I mean, period. And yes, I did learn a lot about how you fund things and how you assess things. I'll tell you, the one thing I did learn was we looked at a lot of AI companies to invest in back when it was really starting to boom a lot during the ChatGPT days. And the first question we all learned to ask was, what is your data moat? Like, where's the data? That's the first thing, because if you didn't have access to the data, it didn't matter. Whatever technology you had was going to be wiped out by somebody in 6 months. Like, it's just, this massive arms race. But if you had really, really good data that nobody else had, then you had a huge advantage. You had this massive moat. And I saw a lot of companies that did not charge, had free products basically just to acquire data in the first 5 years so that they could create the foundation of a company. So when Paychex called me and said, we've been doing this for 50 years and we have this massive database. And oh, by the way, it's employment data, which answers the questions you haven't been able to solve in all of the models you've been trying to build for the past 20 years, Beaumont. I was like, okay, it prepped me to see the value of the data and see. And I was, quite frankly, also I was shocked because even in the VC world, not a lot of people were clued into the fact that data was the important thing. A lot of people were really focusing on the technology. What's the AI? What can the AI do? What have you got in terms of code? And the board and the CEO here were very clear. They had known for a while the value of the data and the role it played. And I found that to be a very rare quality in publicly traded and large companies. And so I was highly impressed. And they had an entire strategy built around data first and AI as well. And I knew that this was a different kind of leadership team.
Wow, it was fascinating. Very interesting anecdote there as well. Beaumont, there's a lot of investigation currently and demand, frankly, from boards, from executive committees on deriving value from artificial intelligence. If you think about the emergence of generative AI, there was understandably a period of great experimentation as to what this is and how it could, be worked into workflows of different organizations. Now, I think after that period of experimentation, in many cases, great investment, the necessity to understand whether there's gold in those hills, so to say, is demanded to a greater extent. And I wonder, what are some of the areas that you're seeing as some of the greatest value contributors in the use of artificial intelligence in an organization like Paychex, or by extension from what you know from other companies that you have reason to be in touch with?
Yeah, I think it helps to understand where we are in this technology cycle because I'm fortunate or unfortunate enough to have been through a lot of huge technology revolutions in my rather long lifetime now. And we're this is one that's just emerging, right? It's early days. And if you look at a lot like ChatGPT, which is where people got a lot of the attention, but if you go back to the transformer models that came out before that, which we were leveraging, you got this capability that it can handle language well. And so most of AI has been up to this point has been we can read stuff and make sense of words and get you answers. And now if you're using ChatGPT, like it can give you answers to things. And if you think about it, like from a small business context, you have an employee who's, got married or moved states or had some condition change, and you could leverage an AI tool and ask it, well, what do I need to do? And it could say, well, you need to file these forms for tax purposes or whatever. Great. Now you know. And that's a huge leap. Like it gives you knowledge and it gave it to you really quickly. What I find extremely exciting is that the unlock to that is just emerging right now with agents, because there's a big difference between me saying, well, Peter, all you need is a form, 1/92, and here's a website you can go to and you can print that off and just send it to this address. Well, that's great knowledge. It's great that you can get that quickly. You didn't have to hunt for it. But how much different is if I'm an agent and I say, would you like me to fill that form out for you and send it right now? Done. Right? So the agents are actually like the action arm of AI. And we're very, very excited about that because all that power, I think you were saying people that were questioning the value. And if you give everyone AI and what they're doing is looking stuff up and getting answers, but you still have to go do the work, then it's a partial unlock, right? What's happening with AI agents is we're seeing this just massive unlock now where you can not only look through all the information which we've organized and set up so that AI can read it. It can get the answer. Great. Well, now we're rolling, we're doing a lot of work with agents where it actually can take the action and do things. And right now it's still, pretty simple transactional things like, changing your address. But we see a massive benefit to our clients because it can take care of all those things that are distracting you from your business. It starts to just be able to handle them. And there's no wait time, no looking things up, no running to fill out forms or do anything else. I think we're going to move to a very, very different world where we're going to have to change our thinking about how we do things, quite frankly, because they will be done so much easier. It'll be very similar to what we went through the internet or with smartphones and mobile, I think.
I know, Beaumont, in the past conversation you and I had, you also talked about how excited you were in AI being a supplement to knowledge management, and that the experience of having a long tenured employee retire, for example, and having that knowledge retire with that person is something that businesses have been grappling with forever, and you see a lot of unlock there in terms of ensuring that the value doesn't leave the room with leave the building with the retiring employee in this fictional example. Talk a bit about what you're seeing work well from that perspective, some of these internal cases that are also very powerful.
Yeah, so actually been something that's fascinated me for a while. Now, knowledge management. And knowledge management used to mean, hey, everybody, write everything down. So, you're a 30-year tenured employee with a great deal of knowledge and expertise. Spend a lot of your time keying things into the computer so we can try to look it up later. And if you could, please meta tag that. So we have all these employees who have tons of employees who have got great depth of experience, great amount of passion. And the challenge has always been, if you have a new employee, how can they avail themselves of all of that massive, incredible knowledge? And like I said, one of the first things we did was we went through in those 39 million calls we receive each year. We have a group of highly professional HR advisors who talk to small businesses and walk them through their problems. And they had been both capturing some knowledge and they also have all these conversations recorded. And what we did is we organized that knowledge and put a nice AI copilot on it. Think of like a chat GPT or a Grok or something that had all of that knowledge organized, and it gets refreshed and updated and improved every single day. So you got years and years of knowledge from decades and decades long employees. I have one employee in my organization who just celebrated 45 years, right? So we've got this incredible depth of knowledge. And now for really, I don't want to overstate it, but like for the first time, perhaps in human history, we have a way of effortlessly, without keying anything in or writing it down, capturing that knowledge as it occurs in real time with real clients, organizing it in a database, and a person can show up the first day, ask a question on this little AI tool, and they will get the best possible answer for that instantaneously. So they actually can give answers that are the same quality as the sum total of the knowledge of hundreds of decades-long employees who have deep expertise. It's really an amazing thing if you think about it. And we're just so when a client calls us, that's basically, they're not going to see it. What they're going to hear is they're going to get really good advice. They're going to get it really fast and it's going to be spot on. But in the background, what's happening is we're empowering our employees. We're like, the way I think of it, we like to think of it, we're giving them Iron Man suits. It's not a robot. It's a person, but we're just multiplying the power that they have and the knowledge they have by giving them these tools.
I like your power of analogy, Beaumont. Yet another interesting one to make that point. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned ChatGPT and Grok as a couple of examples as you were giving that response. I wonder, how do you and your team by extension think about the ongoing evolution of tools that emerge, the ecosystem to build, the setting of some standards, certainly, but also experimentation outside of those standards to determine whether or not there's something that is better today than the standard that was set a year ago. How do you think about this philosophically? How do you put that into action?
Yeah, I mean, philosophically, when you go through these things, and it's been this way with AI since BERT came out in March 2018, right? Back then I was thinking, wow, like this stuff doesn't seem to be on top of like in the front for very long. It constantly changes and new capabilities come out all the time. So it started to develop a very agnostic and modular type of philosophy around what we do with these things. So what I can say to you is whenever we start, first off, we start with a problem, not with a technology. I don't have a group of people who's trying to find reasons to use all the new shiny toys that are coming out all the time. Instead, what we do is we say, hey, if we had a magic wand and we could solve this problem we never could solve before, you know, what would we do? And then we go out and we look for, hey, what's out there in the marketplace? What's emerging? What could solve our business problem? Then you have an array of things, right? And um, some of the option is we could build it internally. We've got a very good MCP layer and agentic layer right now. So we have the capability to build almost anything internally if we want to. There's incredibly good tech coming out and new companies emerging daily, right? This is the industry has not consolidated or settled that much. And then there's, we could either rent it or we could buy it. There's partnership ways to do it. There's many different ways to come at it. And the question is really what's best for our clients and shareholders and what gets us the best solution the quickest. And most importantly, leaves us optionality that we can continue to improve quickly. Like we can't get locked into a pathway. So we're very agnostic about these things. And I think what you'd see is that we try a lot of different things. Our view is we have to be very careful with our data first, so that they have to be in protected environments. And so, for example, right now we just rolled out an internal GPT type AI for most of our employees called LibreChat, which we built internally, and that's got protective walls around it. And when we run pilots, we do them very small at first. We measure everything very carefully, but we always make sure we have very, very good data governance and compliance on it. And then we see what the results are. And as we get comfortable with it, we start to loosen those as appropriate to, to sort of optimize the performance. So we move very, very quickly with like lots of small tests, and we're very, very cautious in the small tests, and then we assess, and then we expand if it makes sense.
Well put. I wanted to ask you also how your team works with. You mentioned how this is a company that does not tend to be siloed, that there's a lot of collaboration across the team. I know there's also a product team and a technology team within Paychex, and no doubt there are some aspects of what they do that rhyme with things that you do as well. And I wonder, how do you partner with those organizations? How do you think about the differentiation of value across each of those areas as well?
I think for the most part, what we focus on is what we're trying to do. Like, what are we're trying to make here? And we don't have a whole lot of conversations that go like, well, technically, I think that's my area. And, technically that one over there is your area. And I get that that's not very productive. Instead, what we do is we say, what are we trying to do? And then the question becomes, well, what can each of us do? What can each of us contribute in order to make that happen? And that may be we contribute budget. That maybe we contribute heads to each other. And I mean, honestly, what we're trying to do is focus on getting the job done, and we'll sort out whatever budget issues and stuff later. But our primary focus is to get things done. I mean, broadly speaking, my area is more concentrated on data than the other areas in terms of like the what's and the data governance and the policies. I have the AI engineers who really are the guys who can build things and do innovative new types of AI. Then there's platform, right, which is largely the platforms that run the company. And then we have product, and product is the things that are purely customer facing, like our award-winning Flex platform. But if you try to dig a millimeter below that and say, well, how would you define or segregate those? It's a Venn diagram that's mostly overlap. And so the three of us have to be like the three musketeers. We really have to be very tightly aligned and focused on outcomes.
I wanted to also ask you, are there other trends that excite you, Beaumont, as you look to the future? We've talked about a number of the, of course, very important ones, with perhaps AI being the most important of all, the most talked about and invested in these days. What else excites you as you look to the future?
I've been waiting for AI agents to come out since I was probably about, I don't know, 13 years old, and I was reading Scientific American. And I've been waiting. I'm still waiting for the really good augmented reality smart glasses, which I think Zuckerberg's got it right. I think actually it's the platform that's the next shift in the play and how we interact with these things. I happen to be wearing AI glasses right now. These happen to have a nice interface with an LLM that I can get data anytime I want to, and amongst other things. I'm waiting for this to mature, because I think first agents roll out, which is going to change things. Just using I use Grok and ChatGPT a lot in my personal life, and also Gemini. And using those three, I've had to rethink how I approach problems. I find myself doing things the hard way and then stopping myself and going, hold it, I don't have to spend an hour on this. I could have been done already. Happens to me all the time. Agents are like that next leap where it's going to be 10 times better. I'm still excited that we'll find a better interface than me having to look down at my phone screen all the time. And the glasses, I think, are actually that interface where it will take us to the point where it's just seamless, where we have the solution with us all the time. It's sort of like a genie. It's like an invisible person there, right? That you can not even have to divert your eyes from what you're doing, basically, and get done what you need to while you're continuing on with your day. And I think once we get there, what you're going to see is just a massive change in how we all live, basically.
Describe your glasses. What's powering them?
These are called even G1s, and they're waveforms, so they just have text, right? But they show me my next calendar appointments, the time. If I get any messages, they actually pop up in a non sort of intrusive way, so I can tell whether it's important enough that I have to take the call or reply to the text or whatever it may be. It can translate in real time. So I was watching a great Mandarin YouTube show I didn't know what it was about until I put my glasses on, and it turns out it was about food. And it's translating everything real time right in front of me. My son was in Japan, and I wish he had them. And then also I have an LLM that I can call at any time as well. And for anyone who does a lot of public speaking, it's got a smart teleprompter that actually teleprompts based upon voice recognition. So it moves it as you're talking through the script, and I could be looking at you just like I am. By the way, I'm not teleprompted right now. I could not have scripted this, Peter. But it's nice to know you have it. You know, if you ever accidentally walk onto a TED Talk stage and have to say something intelligent.
Oh, that's great. I really like that. Thank you for that overview. Anything you've recently read, watched, and or listened to, Beaumont, that you'd recommend to others?
Yeah. So one of my favorite thought leaders in this space is Brett Taylor, who is the CEO and founder of Sierra. He's also the guy who basically pitched and created Google Maps, by the way, the best software ever made. He was on the Acquired podcast, the ACQ2 podcast. Not to prop up any of your competitors, Peter. But he and his co-founder Clay we're talking about trying to play where we place AI where it is right now in terms of like other different types of technology revolutions and stuff. And I think Brett framed it very well. I won't try to even paraphrase what he said, but it was one of the most insightful and I think prescient overviews from a high level of where we are, what we can expect, and what's happening right now, and how it's going to unroll. So I think that would be the one I would listen to.
Great suggestion. Thank you so much for it, Beaumont, and thank you for a great conversation. Beside, it's wonderful to learn from you, someone who has been, as it turns out, been thinking about artificial intelligence since at least the age of 13, and now has had reason to put that knowledge and curiosity into practice across a variety of different meaningful experiences, including your current post at Paychex. Really appreciate you sharing your insights with me today. Thank you so much for this terrific conversation.
Great. Thanks for having me, Peter. It was a blast.